David, I've had you on the show so many times. It's cool to finally get to do it like this. And I mean, this is kind of the wave, man. This is how it's been. I guess if one positive thing comes of it, these interviews are a little cooler than the typical phone call, right?
This is the new way.
Well,
we'll first in line.
Is this, yeah, it definitely is. Well, jumping right into it, guys, I just caught some clips from the End of Days Festival in San Antonio. What a gig that was. What was that gig like, David? Was it the first time that you've kind of been on stage in front of people for quite some time? How was the gig, man?
First time for any of us, really. I mean, the last time I was on stage was February 23rd over in Sofia, Bulgaria. We finished the Megadeth Five Finger Death Punch tour. Bumblefoot was over there maybe a week or so longer when he was on the Sons of Apollo tour, maybe early March. Our Ellefson band, the last time we had been on stage was on the Mega Cruise, like exactly a year ago, in October, a year ago. So yeah, it was kind of weird for all of us, and I think kind of weird for the audience to kind of, your nature is to get out of the car, and just do your thing. You're like, oh shit, it's right, I got to put my mask on. And but people generally played by the rules, man. All the bands setting up the merch and everything kept their masks on. We got on stage and obviously we're kind of socially distanced anyway. And those three festivals were all outdoor, which was good for us as the performers. And, the audience, again, that's kind of on them, whatever they want to do. But, it was cold out, which is, I don't know, maybe good. I don't know. But tell you what, it was great to be on stage playing again. We had a hell of a work week. We shot 2 music videos. We rehearsed our asses off for 2 days, and then we banged three festivals. So feels like we did a month tour. I'm a little tired. I'm not going to lie, coming home from that.
Yeah. For me, it was last. So we did with those guys, it was the Mega Cruise, but then me and David went to Europe with Andy and Paulo and did the shows in Europe, which today I think is the 1-year anniversary of the show with KK Downing, the More Live with Death show at Wolverhampton. So,
well, for you, Tom, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you guys got to unveil some songs from the upcoming album, which we'll talk about. But hearing your song on some of those, hearing your voice on some of those Megadeth songs was really a treat for me, man. I thought that was really awesome. What was it like, kind of tackling some of that Megadeth stuff?
I've been singing a lot of that stuff since I was, a kid in cover bands. I mean, Megadeth has always been one of my favorite bands, and I've always kind of been able to do the Dave Mustaine thing. So, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, again, it's one of my favorite bands. I mean, some of my favorite songs, we've, kind of, and we generally tend to pull out kind of more deep cuts, So Far So Good, So What stuff Megadeth doesn't really necessarily play live. It's great, man. It's a lot of fun. Especially, last year on the Mega Cruise, as David just mentioned, obviously Mustaine couldn't go because he was sick. And we got to do a cool little tribute to him and played almost a full Megadeth set with a few of our tunes sprinkled in. I mean, again, it's really cool to be able to pay tribute to that part of David's legacy, but it's also cool to be able to do other stuff and write songs. And I mean, look, it's all pretty awesome,
Well, David, kind of talk about the album. It's called No Covers, and it comes out November 20th. And I'm just looking through the song list here. And of course, we've seen the video now for Auf Wundersehen, the Cheap Trick cover, but talk about how you guys kind of put together these songs. Cause we got everything from Billy Idol, Twisted Sister to Wasp. And I can't wait to check out the Love Machine.
Well, awesome. Most of our calendar, of course, is predicated around Megadeth activity. And 2018, we shut down. Actually, late 2017, we came off the road to write what will become the Megadeth album 16. And Tom and I got busy. We created a platform called Bass Story, got busy doing that. And that's where it opened up an opportunity. I invited Tom on stage to sing a tune or two with me. We realized that, we do all this other business stuff together. It was fun just to get on stage and blow out some tunes, and just kind of have a musical moment together. And, that led to us writing a couple things. And last year we put out this Ellefson Sleeping Giants CD, as well as a book that we wrote called More Life with Death. And then that's, as we, toured that across America and even over in Europe, in the UK, we set in motion writing the next Ellefson solo LP with original material. And we popped a couple of those tunes out earlier this year. In April, we put out the track Simple Truth. And in May, we put out this Post Malone cover that we did, Over Now. And we had tour dates for Australia and Japan on the books. And of course, that all got moved back. And, kind of the caveat, of course, is I was, getting ready to go to Nashville to record bass and drums on the Megadeth album. And that finally happened in late May. That was a reschedule as well. So we got that done. And when I came home from that, Tom and I got on the phone. We were originally going to push out this second Ellefson album in October, and we got on the phone. It was obvious, like, look, there's no reason to. We can't tour it, we can't support it, we can't do anything. And Tom just said, he goes, look, why don't we do some covers? And I said, man, great. I was kind of just in that world. Obviously just recording Megadeth tracks and so Tom and I just started spitballing, cover ideas. And I mean, literally in one phone call, we had like half of an album, and the next day we had a full album. And by the end of the week, we had, these 18 songs.
We had a 19 song double album.
Yeah. He and Tom had invited Chip Enough to be part of it. And he kind of covertly on his own put together the Cheap Trick track Downed, which is sort of the hidden bonus track that's on the record. And so just it quickly came together. Within a month we had it recorded and started mixing and it was just just a total labor of love because first of all, the songs are written. That takes care of that takes care of 6 months of work right there that you're not composing. And it was fun just to go in and work on songs that, the stuff from the 70s is probably the stuff that was a little closer to me. The stuff from the 80s, like Wasp and, Free Will Burning and some stuff like that was probably a little closer to Tom's record collection. And so between the two of us, we covered a couple of decades of material. And I think we went for some kind of not obvious tracks, sometimes you do a cover record, it's easy to just go for some of the obvious and I think we avoided that and came up with a pretty creative little set list here, a little song list.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about a lot of this stuff is, a lot of it was stuff David, before David moved to LA to join Megadeth with Greg Handevitt, they played in bands together and David played in bands and cover bands in Minnesota and Love Me Like a Reptile, Wasted. A lot of the stuff was stuff that David played, and was the stuff, that inspired him. I mean, the BTO song, Not Fragile, I didn't even know at the time we recorded, that's the first song David ever learned on bass, so those kind of cool connections to that. And there were some bands like, Def Leppard, where we're both huge fans of the band, but maybe our, main allegiance to the band laid in different periods. Like, I love everything, but David was more influenced by On Through the Night, where I was more influenced by Pyromania, because I'm a little younger than him. So, I mean, so it was cool. We just kind of, some of it was, we loved the same bands and kind of just settled on in the middle on something. And some of it was stuff that directly David played and had a really strong influence on him as a player, so.
Yeah. Well, Tom, talk about kind of your guys' relationship, because you guys must really get along because you've got a label group, EMP label group. You've got, a movie company. You're releasing a horror movie. You guys have a band together now. What's the relationship like? Kind of how did all this come together, Tom? How did you guys kind of formulate this bond that you have here?
Shocker. It's all because of Shocker. No, I did. So look, maybe 5-6 years ago, I got sick of the music business and took a little hiatus. I started doing more film stuff. And actually for a while, I worked with, funny enough, the guy who represents David now and does those convention appearances. I started representing like actors and doing some convention booking. And then I started doing some film production stuff. And for Shout Factory, I started doing some special features. I did some stuff for People Under the Stairs and Army of Darkness. And then they told me Red Shirt Pictures, the company I did it with, Michael Felcher, told me he was doing Shocker. And I'm like, man, you have to let me do something about the soundtrack. So they gave me zero budget. It was like, here's $200. Go have at it, kid. So I went and I did, man. I interviewed Desmond Child and Jason McMaster. And it's funny, and a lot of that kind of laid the groundwork for some of the stuff we did in the future. But that's how I'd met David when he was at PV briefly through some of the bands I managed, but we reconnected then over the Shocker thing. David did an interview for it, and the rest is kind of history. He mentioned he was going to start a label and had Dollskin at the time, and I had, a bunch of other bands I was working with, Horizon Chaos, and then, we kind of decided to do EMP, and then I was hanging out with Corey Taylor, and he introduced me to Green Death, and that kind of became the first 3 bands on EMP, and then the coffee company happened, and then it turned into this, and then Combat, and then again, like, me and David have a great relationship. We've been friends for, 5 years on a daily, we talk on a daily basis and figure out all this stuff, and I kind of deal with more of the day-to-day operations, and, David's, kind of busy being in one of the biggest bands in the world. So I kind of hold down the fort as far as logistics and signing the bands. But yeah, we have a cool collaborative relationship. And I mean, look, it's like anybody else who runs a bunch of companies together and is in a band and deals with each other on a daily basis. I mean, we have a good relationship, and we just kind of keep finding these different things. And some of it kind of comes from things in my background, like the film stuff. And, that just came through my buddy Drew was doing Dwellers, and I'd done some films. I produced a music business documentary called Long Way to the Top, which won some film festival prizes and had like Phil Collins from Def Leppard in it, and some guys from Weezer and Nine Inch Nails and Wes Borland from Limp Bizkit. And, so again, I'd kind of come out of doing some documentary stuff and some film stuff, which was kind of more led to us to get on the film path. So it's cool. We kind of find these different little pieces of both of our collective, histories that tie together and create these new avenues that we can pursue, films, the coffee, the books. I've been a writer for 20 years, and David had written his first memoir through that. We ended up doing a book, and now we're launching a book imprint, kind of just off of that, and so it's been really cool.
Well, talk to us about the status of Dweller, because I think the official trailer came out a year ago. What's going on with Dweller? You mentioned Drew Fortier, a good friend of our shows here. He's involved in the film as well. What's going on with?
And Drew's also on No Cover. He's the one who David mentioned before. So the hidden track, the Cheap Trick Down, is David, Chip Zinoff, Drew, and I think Vin Dombrowski from Sponge actually did some vocals on that too. But no, Drew's a good friend of mine, and I kind of brought him into the universe here with David, and they became friends, and they actually just wrote a book together. David wrote his first fiction book, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a second. But yeah, so Dwellers, Drew brought it to me and said, hey, he was kind of working on it. Would you and David want to produce this? And I'm like, sure. So it kind of turned into this fun thing where me and David are in the film. We kind of do a cameo as, kind of asshole, slimy, movie producers, but also ourselves, you know what I mean? Maybe a slightly slimier version of ourselves. maybe me more so than David. I mean, but David.
I'd like to think of it more like I'm Alice Cooper and they're Wayne's World.
Who's not worthy? There is no slimy version of David.
Drew's like, I'm not worthy. We're not worthy.
But yeah, the movie's almost done. I mean, look, like everything else, it got held up by COVID. You know what I mean? The plan was to originally put it out this year, and everything just got. I mean, look, No Cover. That's what it was. It was like we found something we could do that made sense during the pandemic. It's awesome, but I mean, doing a cover record is always more like a throwaway record. It's what bands do when they have a record left on their contract, and you know what I mean. It was fun and it was amazing, but it was just kind of what can we do during this pandemic that actually makes sense. Putting out a brand new record of new material that you can't have a full cycle doesn't. Releasing a film doesn't necessarily, you know what I mean? So again, I think it was just one of those things that kind of 2020 became 2021, and now we're, booking some appearances for next year's and some screenings for some conventions, and it's definitely coming out next year. Me and Drew are just kind of putting the finishing touches on the movie right now, and again, you couldn't go out and shoot stuff, you couldn't go out and do stuff. I mean, COVID really is kind of a death knell to a lot of things, or you just have to recalibrate and figure out how to work around it, which is what we've kind of done,
Well, David, talk about kind of how you're going to manage, kind of late 2020 and on into 2021. We've seen Ellefson now playing live. You got the album coming out November 20th. And we've got some dates starting to get announced for Megadeth. I think it just got announced you guys are going to do a download in June. So kind of talk about what the balance is going to be like for you as you kind of navigate the next 8 to 10 months, man.
Yeah, I mean, the bigger the act, the more troublesome COVID has become, and that's why with what Tom and I have been doing with Ellefson and writing books and, doing these other things, these other little imprints and the coffee company and that, we can pivot and move much quicker with that. Even our coffee company, I mean, we started as a .com online mail order coffee company. And because we never got rid of that component of it, as some of our retail outlets were struggling and closed or shut down temporarily, quite honestly, our mail order business has been incredible, so, we've really done quite well, despite all the setbacks. And of course, Megadeth, we had to clear the whole calendar this year, which has been rough. I mean, look, we cleared the whole calendar last year, the Ozzy tour got canceled. Dave was diagnosed with throat cancer, so all that got canceled. But, Tom and I, we're just this little band here called Ellefson, and it's funny how we can, pivot pretty quickly and book shows and get out and do things and record songs and cut records and stay active. And I think a big part of that is staying active. When you're thinking forward and you're creating, it keeps you out of dwelling on, the sky is falling. Oh my God, the other shoe's going to drop. This is just the end. And, quite honestly, No Cover was a big part of that. We started just reaching out to all of our friends saying, hey, you know what, jump in on this record that we're doing. This is good for all of us. It keeps you engaged. It keeps us as a community engaged. And that's what that is.
Which for the record was not a plan at all. It was totally an accident. It was just, I think I was on the phone with Troy Benanto one day. I'm like, dude, you should play on this. And then it just snowballed from there, Yeah,
that was the perfect example, of just getting people out of the house, the proverbial house, if you will, because pretty much everybody recorded at their own house. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, next year, like see Grass Pop, Downloads UK, these big dates are being announced, and so June, kind of being the kickoff of Megadeth activity on the road, and then the metal tour of the year is will follow after that here in the U.S. with Megadeth, Lamb of God, Trivium, and In Flames for July and August. And again, look, at some point you have to just say yes and move forward and act as if, but you also have to be very realistic that any of that stuff could change, so it's, I think in my mind anyway, it's like, let's do all of it, obviously Megadeth goes, we do that, but Tom and I are continuing to work on the next Ellefson record. We're actually mixing tracks right now in London. Tracks are being mixed. We've got about half of the record is done and being mixed right now, and the other half, we've obviously been pretty busy promoting and now doing some tour dates with No Cover but
the other half we pretty much have written, we're just
we pretty much written. We just have to do there's some recording that needs to be done, and again, we're not, we're perfectly realistic of kind of using November as a the setup and the follow through with No Cover, and then after that we're moving over into finishing up that other record and then having it ready to go. So again, it's kind of like it's kind of like two horses at the starting line. You know what I mean? And when the gun fires, send both of the horses into the race, or whatever one can run the race is how we do it.
Well, I mean, it's been crazy, and I mean, this is kind of a loaded question, kind of for both of you guys, but. The last concert I went to was in February in Vegas. It was Aerosmith on their residency there. And I'm just sitting here like, I mean, that's all I do all summer. I'm at shows, covering them and doing interviews. And it's just been such an insane time. But I mean, this is a loaded question, kind of a broad stroke, but do you feel like kind of music is just kind of forever changed here as we try to navigate this? I mean, I know that's a lot, but when it comes to touring, when it comes to recording, I mean, what I've seen through the last 7-8 months is bands are knocking out music and they're able to do it via technology. And it's really been kind of beneficial in that way with regards to getting new music out. The touring side is obviously very important financially, but are we just kind of forever changed? How do we ever get back to normal? How do we, that's a dumb way to put it, but for lack of a better term.
Well, I think as far as the recording, it's already been there. It's just being really highlighted by the fact that there's nothing else going on. There's no touring. Usually, I think it's already been there where people were making music remotely, and again, I think people have figured out ways to be even more creative and productive in that side of it because of the pandemic and whatever else. I mean, and obviously I'll let David speak to this. So I think as far as the shows, I mean, look, I think there's not gonna be a normal. I mean, look, I think even when we get back to normal, it's going to be different. I think a lot of venues are unfortunately going under in this thing.
Yeah.
I think, look, I think new ones are going to pop up. Oh, the music business is cyclical, man. I mean, obviously there's never been a pandemic, but there's been other things that have changed these dynamics, and the business obviously will bounce back the way it always has. But I don't think we're even going to see that until, there's a vaccine for this thing and the world really can get its hand around it and figure it out. I mean, look, it's such a pivoting, the constantly evolving situation that I think nobody really they still don't fully understand it. You know what I mean? So like, I think you can just cautiously take baby steps. And, I think that's all we're going to do is just keep seeing bigger and bigger baby steps until we're walking,
Yeah. I well said. I kind of before we put a bow on all this, David, it's always like talking to you about your Youth Music Foundation. Ellefson Youth Music Foundation.org is the website. Kind of for those that haven't heard some of our previous interviews where we've kind of discussed it more at length, kind of talk about the website and kind of how people can donate and sort of the basis behind kind of putting this thing together.
Yeah, well, you just mentioned the URL there, and there is a donate sign, a little link up there, and we're obviously always in a fundraising mode for that. Fortunately, our expenses are pretty low, so we can actually use the money to further the cause with the Youth Foundation. Ironically, Tom was talking about right at the end of 2019, saying, "Hey, 2020, I really want to put some focus on the foundation." We formed it in 2018. We did a little bit back at my hometown in Jackson, Minnesota. We all got busy with other things in 2019. And then ironically, we turned the corner. And then as the world shut down, Tom had called me and said, "Hey, why don't you pick up your bass and get on Skype and let's start doing some music lessons, And it's funny that conversation prompted a much bigger initiative, which we called Schools Out, and Cisco got involved and gave us an incredible grant of equipment and their technology platforms to be able to start giving lessons. Not just me, but I called in Bumblefoot, Chris Cale from Five Finger Death Punch, and all these different famous artist friends of mine to donate some of their time. Nita Strauss. And it was good because, if you're honest with you, again, when you've got your hand in the hand of someone else in need, it sort of takes you out of your own problem. And of course, we were all watching our whole calendars get cleared. All of us going, "Oh my God, the tour's going away. My recording date's going away. How am I going to pay my bills this year?" Musicians are in the same boat as everybody else, And quite honestly, not everybody can get unemployment. So being a musician is a kind of interesting job. But that foundation, really helped pull things together. And fortunately, the Grammy Music Education Coalition brought us in as part of their initiative, and that was a big help because, of course, they have a very wide bandwidth and helping promote things for us. We were all, that quite honestly, what you see on No Cover with our community coming together to record largely started back in April when we started doing a live stream that we called "Oh Say Can You Stream," and we did a couple of those, and we invited a bunch of, again, friends in from the community and said, "Hey, let's be proactive and start to help kids who are out of school. Let's get guitars back in their hands and help them start to be productive in this time and not just sit around and let idle hands."
Yeah, sure gave us some microphones. We actually bought some guitars for some kids from Jackson, and some other companies donated some stuff, and it was cool. So we had not only people donating time and giving lessons to kids, but also we got to give some guitars away and help some kids get some instruments. And
amazing. I just so appreciate that so much. You guys do so great with that. We got to send everybody to the website, davidellefson.com. So you can get the info on No Cover, and it comes out November 20th. Guys, before we cut you loose, I got to hit you with my Final Four drum roll. 4 quick questions. I'll throw each of you 2 of them, and we'll get you out of here if that sounds okay. You guys probably still got to go vote and stuff, right?
I already did. I voted.
All right.
I voted earlier before this. I had a plan.
I did too. I voted a few weeks ago.
So. Oh yeah, me too. It was still an hour line 2 weeks ago for me, but hey, it's all good.
I waited 5 minutes today, man. I literally went. I got up at like 10. I was still a little jet lagged. We just traveled. Yesterday was a travel day. I got up, I went and I hopped out. I popped it. I waited 5 minutes. It was amazing.
Damn, that's just going to get me back to my procrastinating ways here in that story. Okay. Final four. Tom, we'll start with you. Halloween just passed by, of course, just a few days ago. I know you're a horror movie guy. What's your favorite horror movie of all time, or your at least top 3?
Yeah, let's see. Shocker, obviously, as we've already discussed. Trick or Treat, I love. Friday the 13th. Dude, I love that soundtrack. We actually covered Fastway on the record.
That's right. I saw that.
You did. Hit me and I'll get you the record too. I can't believe you didn't get the whole record, but I'll get it to you so you can check it out too.
You're correct. Yeah, those are. I just watched The Thing 3 nights ago.
The Thing is great. Awesome. That is a very loaded question.
It is.
Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Halloween, the classics. For the past couple of weeks before we left for tour, I've been sitting down with my daughter, and we watched Halloween 3, and we're actually going to watch Trick or Treat tonight. We went to go watch it, and I realized my DVD wasn't in the case, so I had to, and that movie's like impossible to find. I had to order another one off eBay, so it showed up when I was gone. So we're going to actually watch that tonight. So,
a couple days late, but we'll let it slide. David, of all the songs on No Cover, what was your favorite song of those 19 or 20 songs growing up?
Wow. Well, like Tom said, BTO Not Fragile was that was the needle drop on the Not Fragile album. And the song You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet was obviously the big, huge hit all over the radio. But when I got that album, everything about that album just changed my life, because it was this double gatefold. It was a single album, but it was this gatefold, open band photo inside, Fred Turner with his black and white Rickenbacker 4001 bass. And just hearing a bass guitar for the first time, I didn't even know what it was. I was like, what is that? And so just, that song, probably that really is the downbeat. That is the origin story of everything for David Ellefson as a professional bass player.
And what's funny is I didn't even really know that song. Because, I was born in 75, so that probably came out like the year after I was born. So,
right.
Yeah. And ironically, in 1975, BTO put out Four-Wheel Drive, which had another song, Hey You, which is another big hit, So that was my jam back in his day.
But it's funny because that turned out being one of my favorite songs on the record. The way we did it, after I recorded it, I'm like, God, I love, and that's honestly one of my favorite songs on the record.
Tom, what was the last concert you've attended as a fan before things went to hell?
Oh man. I went last year. Well, obviously, I saw a bunch of them on the Mega Cruise. I went and saw Post Malone in Chicago and hung out with him, which was absolutely incredible.
That's sweet.
That was great. And then, I went and saw Static X over the summer. They were one of the bands that ventured out and played a little festival here, and they're good buddies of mine. So I went and saw them. I think technically Static X would have been the last one.
Awesome. David, for you, kind of what show or shows did you get all caught up on kind of during the pandemic time?
Wow. You know what? I finally watched Mad Men. I'd heard about it. I'd never seen it. So I binge watched that. I binge watched House of Cards. I'm now binge watching Designated Survivor. I got caught up in some stuff. That's the thing. People tell me about movies and stuff. And because so much of my life is 30,000 feet in the air on airplanes, my cinema watching is usually airplane movies, and I come home and entire seasons of either shows or movies have moved through the cinema. I've missed them all, so I get caught up on things kind of in arrears, So, but it was good to have a Netflix binge this year. I'm not gonna
right. Yeah, every week he's like, oh, I'm binge watching this now. He's been on a mission. I'll say this: I was so excited to get home and finally get to watch the new episode of The Mandalorian today. It came out when we were out last week, obviously, and I was in Phoenix for a week. We did an in-store for Record Store Day last Saturday. So I actually went out to Phoenix a week before to do that in-store. And me and David had some meetings and some stuff. So I was gone for like a week and a half during these shows. So I was so excited to get home and finally get to watch the new episode of The Mandalorian.
Well, that's awesome, guys. I tell you what, send everybody to davidellefson.com. That's where you can get to all the rest of the URLs because there's lots of them.
Go to the social media. I mean, honestly,
there you go.
Go to the social media. That is always the most websites, they're always a little behind with social media. David Ellefson on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those are the places to really find the most up-to-date stuff.
As if he needed more Twitter followers, Tom. Yeah, there you go. David Ellefson on Twitter, man. He's doing great on there. You guys are awesome. Catch you guys soon. Hopefully up there on the road somewhere out there in the stratosphere. We'll come say hi in person. You guys take her easy and rock on. Thanks so much.
Sounds good.
Awesome, Cliff. Thank you.